The year is 2008. The global financial system is on the verge of collapse. The world is tightening its belt, but for one man, the crisis is intensely personal. He is down to his last dollar. Not only are his bank accounts nearly empty, but his two infant companies, one building rockets, the other electric cars, are staring down the barrel of immediate bankruptcy. His marriage is failing. The press is calling him a fraud, an eccentric buffoon playing a billionaire's game. He was facing not just one, but a simultaneous, catastrophic collapse of his entire professional and personal life. Most people, having made hundreds of millions of dollars just a few years earlier, would have folded. They would have walked away, retired to a private island, and lived comfortably for the rest of their days. But this man is Elon Musk, and there is one thing that defines him, one fundamental truth that sets him apart from every other entrepreneur on the planet. He refuses to lose. The refusal to lose isn't a strategy, it's a survival mechanism, forged in a childhood that was far from privileged or easy. Elon Musk's story doesn't begin in Silicon Valley, but in Pretoria, South Africa. It begins with a boy who was fundamentally an outsider. He wasn't the star athlete. He was the quiet kid whose head was constantly buried in books, science fiction, philosophy, encyclopedias. Books were his escape, his portal to a better, more logical world. While others played sports, he was reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and deciding that the ultimate purpose of life was to solve problems for the benefit of humanity. But the world outside his books was cruel. School was a place of torment. He was brutally and relentlessly bullied. It wasn't just a tough childhood, it was genuinely traumatic. The most famous account is when a group of kids cornered him, beat him so severely they broke his nose, and knocked him unconscious, sending him to the hospital. That experience, that physical pain and social isolation, created a shell. It developed the famous Musk characteristic of stoicism, of pushing through pain, and of an incredible, almost terrifying stubbornness. If the world was going to be a harsh, unforgiving place, he would simply become tougher than it was. He learned to survive. He learned to endure. By the age of 12, he had taught himself computer programming, not just to play games, but to create one. He sold the code for a simple space combat game called Blastar for $500. Even then, the seeds of his two lifelong passions, computing and space, were intertwined. At 17, recognizing the limited opportunities in apartheid South Africa and seeking a life in the place where true innovation happened, he left for Canada. He left alone, with almost nothing, carrying only a backpack and a desperate hope. The early years in North America were a masterclass in hustle. He put himself through university by working odd, grueling jobs, shoveling grain, cutting lumber, and cleaning a boiler room for the equivalent of $18 an hour. He often had to survive on less than $1 a day, rationing hot dogs and oranges. He attended Queen's University in Ontario, then transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, accumulating 2 degrees, one in physics, one in economics. He wasn't just smart, he was hungry. He was building his foundation, but he knew the classroom was just the rehearsal. The real show was in California. In 1995, he moved to Silicon Valley intending to pursue a PhD at Stanford. He lasted 2 days. 2 days. The internet was exploding, and he realized the time for theoretical study was over. The time for doing was now. He dropped out and with his younger brother Kimball started his first company, Zip2. Zip2 was an internet city guide, providing maps and directories for newspapers. It was a glorified digital yellow pages, but in the mid-90s, this was revolutionary. They couldn't afford an office. They couldn't afford an apartment. Musk literally slept on a futon in the small Renton office, showering at the local YMCA. While most founders were out pitching venture capitalists, he was debugging the code, living off instant noodles, and working non-stop. He took no salary. He took every risk. That relentless refusal to quit paid off. In 1999, Compaq purchased Zip2 for over $300 million. Elon Musk, the kid who was nearly beaten to death on a playground, had just become a multi-millionaire, netting $22 million personally. He could have stopped there. He didn't. He immediately pivoted to his next, even bolder idea, revolutionizing the global banking system. This was X.com, the company that would ultimately become PayPal.
The money from Zip2, the $22 million, didn't go into a vacation home or a portfolio of safe stocks. It went straight into the next, even more audacious gamble, X.com. In 1999, the idea of an online bank that could manage finances and send payments via email was considered borderline insane. X.com was that vision. But Musk was racing a competitor, an encryption company called Confinity, which had a popular money transfer tool known as PayPal. The two companies merged, and the battle for the future of the company was joined. Musk's vision was total disruption. Build a global financial supermarket powered by the X.com brand. His new partners, the founders of Confinity, led by Peter Thiel and Max Levchin, were pragmatists. They wanted to focus solely on the smaller, more popular money transfer service, PayPal. The tension was immediate. The clash of visions was brutal. Musk was relentless, implementing massive system changes, including swapping the reliable Microsoft platform for the less stable Linux. He was a force of nature, but his management style was chaotic, his decisions often abrupt, and his belief in his own vision absolute. This was his first taste of the corporate politics that can undo pure ambition. In the year 2000, while Elon Musk was on a much-needed honeymoon in Australia, the PayPal Mafia, his own management team, staged a coup. They held a clandestine board meeting, voted him out, and replaced him with Peter Thiel. Musk was fired from the company he co-founded and was still the largest shareholder of. This wasn't just a business setback, it was a deep personal betrayal. Imagine building something from the ground up, only to be rejected and cast out by the very people you hired. It was a failure of leadership and communication, a failure that would have broken most people's spirit. But for Elon Musk, it was just fuel. When PayPal sold to eBay for $1.5 billion in 2002, Musk's equity stake netted him approximately $165 million. Suddenly, he was richer, but also liberated. He was free from the constraints of the boardroom, free from the battles over branding and platform. He was free to think bigger, much bigger. Now, with a fortune of over $165 million at the age of 32, he faced the ultimate choice: a life of comfortable, leisurely retirement or a life of existential risk. He chose the risk. Musk looked at the future of humanity and saw two major existential threats. First, the threat of stagnation and resource scarcity on Earth, which demanded a shift to sustainable energy. Second, the threat of extinction, which demanded that humanity become a multiplanetary species.
He decided his life's work would be to solve both. In 2002, with nearly $900 million of his PayPal money, he founded SpaceX. The initial goal? To put a greenhouse on Mars, a simple project to reignite the world's passion for space. He tried to buy Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles, but the Russians laughed at him and tried to charge him exorbitant sums. They treated him like a foolish American tourist. Instead of walking away, Musk stood up in the meeting and declared, "Fine, we will build our own rockets." The entire aerospace industry laughed louder. They called it Elmo's Toy Company. They said building rockets was a decades-long pursuit requiring the resources of a nation-state. They were right historically, but Musk was operating under a different principle. First principles thinking. He asked, what are the raw materials of a rocket? Aluminum alloys, titanium, carbon fiber. What is the cost of these materials? A fraction of the total price. The conclusion? The high cost of spaceflight was due to entrenched inefficiency, not scientific impossibility. Meanwhile, he also invested aggressively in a small, ambitious electric car company called Tesla. He poured $70 million into the company, became its chairman, and eventually took over as CEO and product architect. His goal was simple: to prove that electric cars didn't have to be slow, ugly golf carts. They could be fast, powerful, and desirable. The Tesla Roadster was born. By 2008, he had fully committed. He had two companies, two massive capital-intensive bets, and the world was about to crash around him. The year 2008 arrived like a thunderclap. The global economy melted down. Funding dried up overnight, and at SpaceX, the pressure mounted to an almost unbelievable degree. Musk had enough money from PayPal to fund the first 3 launch attempts of his new rocket, the Falcon 1. He knew it would be a struggle, but he believed in his engineers. He believed in the calculations. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans for the man who refused to lose. The first launch in March 2006 failed. A fuel leak caused a fire just after liftoff. Rocket lost, satellite lost, money gone. The press had a field day. The second launch in March 2007 failed. Still in the atmosphere, a sloshing issue in the propellant tank caused the engine to shut down. Rocket lost, satellite lost, money gone. The critics sharpened the knives. The third launch in August 2008 failed. A timing error during stage separation caused the first stage to collide with the second. The rocket tumbled out of control. Rocket lost, satellite lost, money gone. 3 failures, 3 catastrophic losses. Musk had bet $100 million, his entire personal fortune dedicated to SpaceX, and it was now a column of smoke and shattered metal at the bottom of the Pacific. No private company had ever recovered from 3 consecutive rocket failures. The industry standard was to quit. The insurance market wouldn't touch them. They had no customers left. Simultaneously at Tesla, things were even worse. The global economic recession had made the Roadster an unaffordable luxury. Suppliers demanded cash up front. The company was burning money to fix production issues, and the doors were set to close. By late December 2008, Tesla was literally 3 days from bankruptcy.
He was broke. His companies were broke. His marriage was dissolving under the stress. He had lost 90% of his $165 million fortune. He was in the pit. The man who refused to lose was staring straight into the eyes of total, irredeemable loss. He was faced with a choice so agonizing, so stark, it defined his entire career. He had enough cash remaining to save one company, not both. He could take his remaining few million, pump it into Tesla, and let the space dream die. Or he could put it all into SpaceX and let the electric car dream die.
Musk refused to make the choice. He refused to let either one fail. Instead of choosing one, he chose both. He split his remaining last $40 million, the true last dollar, between Tesla and SpaceX. He was all in. He was betting his career, his reputation, and his entire net worth on the chance that 18 impossible companies could survive one of the worst financial crises in modern history. The odds of both companies making it were statistically 0. But a refusal to lose is not about the odds, it's about the will. SpaceX had one rocket left, One final shot. The launch window was set for September 28, 2008, the fourth launch of the Falcon 1. If it failed, the company was dead. The engines were silent. The engineers were on the edge of their seats, knowing this was it. And then, on that fourth, desperate attempt, high above the Pacific Ocean, the rocket fired. The stages separated perfectly. It made it to orbit. SpaceX became the first private company in history to put a liquid-fueled rocket into orbit. The victory was immediate, but the financial picture was still catastrophic. The company was saved from shame, but not from insolvency. They still had no money. Then, on December 23, 2008, in the depths of the recession, NASA called. They awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. It was the ultimate life-saving validation. SpaceX was alive. But Tesla was still dying. It was Christmas Eve 2008. Tesla was set to miss payroll on December 26th. In a final desperate conference call, Musk used the NASA win as leverage. He put his last cent into the company to meet the payroll deadline, begging his remaining investors to match the capital. At 6 p.m. on December 24, 2008, the financing round finally closed. Tesla was saved on the very last day possible. The man who refused to lose had walked through the fire of personal and professional bankruptcy and emerged with both his impossible companies intact. It was the hardest-fought victory of his life. He had gone from being a ridiculed entrepreneur and a former CEO of a successful company to the savior of two world-changing enterprises, all within the span of 3 months. From that moment, the narrative changed. It was no longer about whether Elon Musk would fail. It was about how much more he could win. The years that followed were a relentless march of innovation and execution, each one a testament to that refusal to quit in 2008. Tesla went on to create the Model S, the Model 3, and became the world's most valuable car company, forcing every single major global automaker from Detroit to Stuttgart to embrace the electric future. The quiet kid who was bullied for reading too much had successfully stared down and changed an entire century-old industry. SpaceX became the dominant force in orbital launch, perfecting the reusability of rockets, another impossible feat, cutting the cost of spaceflight and setting its sights on Mars with the Starship program. The vision that began with a childhood love of science fiction is now actively building the hardware to make humanity multiplanetary. Every subsequent challenge, the Model 3 production hell, the Starship explosions, the constant stream of critics, all faded in comparison to the crucible of 2008. He had survived the ultimate test, and he learned that no matter the scale of the failure or the public ridicule, the answer is always the same: keep going. The story of Elon Musk is not just a business case study. It is a fundamental lesson in resilience. It shows that success isn't about avoiding failure, but about having the sheer, bloody-minded will to get back up one more time than you are knocked down. He didn't win because he was the smartest or the richest. He won because, when faced with certain simultaneous annihilation, he simply refused to lose.